Hello and welcome to a new episode. I am Leona and today I'm speaking with Victoria in Argentina. Victoria, you were born in Buenos Aires in 2000 and grew up with your parents and brother in a conservative Catholic environment, attending a right-leaning religious school. But your own values led you elsewhere. You studied political science, got involved in human rights and volunteer work early on, and after graduating with a bachelor in 2022, you spent several months traveling through Brazil, working by the beach. Back in Buenos Aires, you began working for a progressive human rights NGO and started your master's in the design and management of social programs. You also write for independent magazines on social justice, human rights, and sustainability in urban spaces. Today, we'll explore your journey between those different worlds. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you very much, Leona. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for that introduction.
The first question I always have is, how are you feeling when you hear your story like that?
I don't know. It's weird to have yourself summarized in a couple sentences. You always believe that there are things that are outside of that words. I was actually speaking about this interview with a friend of mine yesterday, telling her about this, and I read her my bio. And she was like, well, that's your clickbait, she told me. If you were only working in an NGO and be like a progressive or activism, it would be one thing. And if you would be raised in the society that you were raised, in the school that were raised, it would be another thing. But it's the mixture of both that is like your clickbait, she told me. I thought it was fun. It was the thing that makes you different. I think there's a lot of things that make each other different, but I like that we talked about that one.
Yeah, that's true. And that's actually why it is also so interesting for me to talk to you, because I really love people with different experiences and different perspectives on life and on the world. And that's why I really would like to dive now immediately into your childhood, because that's always where we start from, especially me coming from psychology. So you grew up in Buenos Aires. First of all, for all the people who have
Yes.
never been to Latin or South America or even into Argentina, how is it to grow up in Buenos Aires? How does life look like back then?
Oh, it's beautiful. I actually love Buenos Aires a lot. I was born and raised in a part of Buenos Aires that it's outside of the city. It's the north part. It's kind of the suburbs of Buenos Aires, in a beautiful neighborhood with, well, my mom, my dad, and my brother. I went to Brazil every year. Have a big family, a lot of cousins. I lived in the same house my whole life, went to the same school my whole life. It was a beautiful childhood, I believe. It was nice.
Is there anything special you do, you play with, or you focus on when you're a child in Argentina? Anything you remember from childhood?
I danced a lot
Mm-hmm.
since I was 7 years old or 8, till I was like 18, 19. I did dance classes like hip hop, classical, jazz, a lot of those. I always loved reading a lot, writing. I wrote a lot also. I liked imagining stories in my mind with the dolls or with myself. I could play for hours and hours just imagining stories. I have a lovely relationship with my brother, and we used to play together a lot also.
Beautiful.
I have the same friends since I was like 5 years old.
Nice. I think that's a typical Latin American community, I can imagine. And how is it, just
Yes.
from this perspective, what kind of values were impacting your life back then?
From school, I went to a private like Catholic school that had really marked values. There are some that are really nice and I love a lot, like a lot of friendship values is really important, and to be truthful, it's important. And I think that to be truthful and to give importance to friendship were really important. But also, I think I was raised like to have a certain way of showing yourself correctly, like to present yourself as the correct kind of person, like to be tidy and to be nice to everyone and to be Catholic and to never show too much and never speak too much. I think that was something that my school wanted for their students. But I think my family was kind of surprised when I was a little girl. I don't think they thought I would have so many values of myself, but they always respected it. I remember, for example, I talk about this time. There was a family dinner at my house, and we were like 20 people or more. That was the day that we vote, and it's always like a polarized thing in politics in Argentina. It's always polarized. It doesn't matter what year, what election. And they were all arguing about politics, and I was like 6 years old. And my father stopped the table for a second and he asked me, "What do you think?" And I said something that nobody there believed, like, "I want that one to win." I didn't know anything because I was 6 years old. But everyone started telling me why my opinion was wrong and trying to explain me their opinions. And my father shut them all up and said, "If that's her opinion, we respect it." And I think that that's a lot of how my family raised me. Like, they showed me their opinions. They had opinions that sometimes they're like me, sometimes are not. But they always told me that my opinion mattered and that I didn't have to change it for somebody else's. Like, if I'm able to back it up and I'm able to think different and to answer why do I think that, then it's valid. So I think that's really important because we went to church a little bit. They're not that Catholic, but they had like their opinions about the Argentinian history that it was brought down from their parents, and they have like a cultural values. But I think that the thing they told me the most was that I was able and I was allowed to have values of myself. That was always very clear. Yes.
Very beautiful experience, this supportive parents, right? But in what way, when you said right-winged Catholic school, how did you realize it back then? What happened at school?
It's not what happened school. I think it's what it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I started to realize when I was about 15 years old. I had like this idea that I didn't want to be Catholic anymore. And it was weird because my whole school was Catholic and my friends, they were all making their confirmation. I don't know if it's in English is a thing. And I was the only one that didn't want to do it. And then when I realized that wanting to not being Catholic was something that had stand out and that people looked at me different, I was like, okay, there's something weird here. It's something weird with everybody thinking the same way, and someone that it doesn't want to think the same way, it gets attention. And that's the first time I realized, okay, this is strange. Although when I became like a teenager and the thing that I wanted to rebel and everything that happens to all of us, I started to read about feminism and another kind of social books. In 2018, it was my last year of high school. It was the top of the wave of feminism in Argentina. Everyone was talking about it. We were discussing abortion rights, and it was a really powerful moment from Latin American feminism. It was the moment, there's a movement called Ni Una Menos. It's like not one less. It's a Latin American movement that was really important and really powerful against violence against women, let's say. And so in school, we started talking about abortion. Of course, my school was all against it, and I wasn't. And then I realized and that was weird for me, like starting to analyze that there were different perspectives and different points of view that the ones they were telling me. Then when I went to university, I studied, for example, the military dictatorship here in Argentina.
Wow.
And I was like, why this wasn't taught to me? So the dictatorship in Argentina is a crucial part of our history, and it makes our politics today. And I wasn't taught about it in a real way. It was like something we went through for an hour in class, and then that's okay. And I was like, okay, there's something here that they are not teaching me. There's something here that they are not telling me. And every time I spoke about things that were outside the norm, the teachers had like this panic face on them, like I shouldn't be talking about that, or they didn't have an answer for that. So it's more what I knew they weren't teaching me, not what they taught me. Like, I didn't study the feminist authors. I studied about social justice, about history, about philosophy, and there was no woman philosopher. So it was more about that, what they were not telling me and not what they told me, because they always told a part of story, a part of the history, a part of the politics and everything. So I think that's what I realized, that they were not teaching me about feminism, about women history, about Black history, that things though don't appear in our syllabus at school. They weren't teaching me about the dictatorship that happened, about the rights that were being left aside. So it was more about that, what they were not telling me, what they told me.
And did you have any people who were supporting you, people you were talking to? Were there any maybe popular people or any other figures who had an influence on you? Or how do you think that you figure all this out?
I believe, well, my family is, they really, we all read a lot and we all discuss a lot. So they were obviously an influence on me. I have a big library with a lot of books and about everything. So reading, it was really important for me to learn what was I missing in my high school or my university. I don't believe that there were popular people like inciting me for me to look over, but I was like, I think books and authors. So that's what led me to know different things. I think mostly is that. And in school, I was a really good student. I was not a conflict person. Everybody loved me. Teachers loved me. So they didn't tell me that I was bad or that I was wrong. They were like, I know what you're doing. It's okay, but I don't want anyone else to be like this. So don't say it out loud. Something like that. It was like, we know you're doing your thing and you have your ideas, and I believe that it's okay. We think that that's okay, but we can't have you telling those ideas everywhere here. That was kind of the view.
But that was probably more in between the lines, huh? Or did ever any concrete conflicts come up like that?
No, it was more between the lines. Outside of the class, they told me that they thought I was really intelligent and they believed that I would do very well outside of school, but those things weren't for school. Or they always taught me in philosophy or mathematics. In some things, they would tell me, "Oh, you're the best of the class." And then when at the end of the year, when they had to give a prize, for example, for the class, they would never choose me, and I knew why, and they knew why. It was something like that.
That is already very political. Were there also other school options for you, or is that just a very typical thing in Argentina to get to a Catholic school?
No, there are other options. It's more about the place I live in. It's called San Isidro. It's kind of a conservative neighborhood, high class. Like before the urbanism, this place was more like the countryside of Buenos Aires, and then it developed to this neighborhood. But that like countryside or people with land kind of ideas remained. I think it's more about my neighborhood than the whole of Buenos Aires.
I would say we have similar developments in Europe and Germany. Yeah, it definitely sounds it's a very typical thing all around the world, probably. Okay, and then you decided to study political science. Where would you
Yes.
say did that decision come from?
I studied international relationships. That it's like the same part. The first years are the same, and then you decide if you want to do the international thing or the political thing. And I had the model UN at school when I was 15. And I was like, I want to do this for a living. I can discuss about their politics in drugs. I can discuss their politics about gender. And we discussed between each other representing a country about different ideas and how each country represented those ideas and what did they have to say about each one of them. And I was like, I want to do this for my whole life. And so I studied with international relationships. And then while I was studying, I realized that I didn't want to study power between states or how the different states use this power between each other. What I wanted was to make social programs that changed people's lives and to have discussions about why do we want to change these things and why are problems and which is the best way to tackle them and to make life better. For me, politics is the questions about what as a society troubles us and what as a society do we want to change and how. And I realized that was more about political science than international relationships for me. So that's why I went to that side. Yes.
And would you say that you actually also did study and did learn these things you wanted to learn during study? Or did you realize, again, the idea and the reality is something different?
There are always different, let's say. When I went to university, I also went to a Catholic private university. I think because I was scared of coming a little bit out of that world. That's like the devil I knew. So the same thing happened. There are a lot of things that I wasn't learning, but I went to learn it somewhere else this time. Like I got another teachers and another people that taught me a lot about the things that I wasn't learning in the university. But I think that university really taught me about how do we understand problems and the narrative behind them. Like, if you see so many points of view about society that you get to learn to create your own. They really taught me how the different views about society, how there you can see it in an economic point of view, political point of view, social, gender, and nature. There's a theory for each point of view about the world, and I think that they really taught me like how to create a view that has meaning and that it's logical from the beginning to the start, and that you can back up. Let's say.
Mm.
I think that that theory was important.
Who was influencing you there the most during study times? Were there special teachers or maybe political figures that were interesting, or maybe even friends or colleagues or something like that?
So I think as I told you, 2018 was a big year for the feminist movement in Argentina. So I was really drawn to that. I began to go to manifestations and protest, and a whole new world opened up for me. If you ever go to a protest in Argentina, you will see that that it's really really incredible. The songs and the way they all act like one. It's really powerful. And when I started going there alone at first, I saw that there was a lot of presence of Amnesty International.
Mm.
International. So I started volunteering there, and there I met with a lot of people that thought like me, and for me that was incredible.
Mm.
Like, for instance, I went there to a table full of young people. They have a youth group for activism. So I went there to a meeting, and there was a lot of people that thought like me, that wanted to do things like me, and for me that was incredible. I felt less alone in a way. Okay, I'm not crazy. It's not that I have these ideas that I don't know where they come from. There are a lot of people with my ideas all over the world. Like, it's not that I'm going against the nature course of things, let's say. So that those friends really really helped me to believe that I have a right to say what I'd say, that I was not crazy about what I thought. That would be one thing. I also met with people from my neighborhood that were doing a small NGO. We were all really young and thought we could have this great impact in our neighborhood. And we wanted to change the legislation in this neighborhood about LGBTQ and gender loss of discrimination. So we started a lot of movements, and we talk about with politics from here, from San Isidro, and then the different activist groups were like, okay, there's people that want to make an impact like me, like they believe that these things could change. It's not that I'm crazy. So I think that had a lot of impact on me also.
I can definitely understand and relate to that, what you're describing, this feeling of belonging, belonging to other people, belonging to a group or even a mindset or a theory, and that you don't feeling isolated and secluded the whole time during childhood and upbringing at school. I can definitely relate to that. What I'm very curious, so during study time in Argentina, around the world, at least some people here, there's a lot of instability happening for the past years, so how is that studying political science, or in general, is it to be a young person, a student in Argentina during these crazy times?
There's always crazy times in Argentina. There's in every year that you choose, it will be crazy times. Nowadays, more than other years. It was crazy actually. My college, they used a lot about what was happening every day and the news and the context that we were studying to teach us. And I think that was great. That was brilliant. It was the best way to learn. And it's interesting because Argentinians are one of the most politicized people in the world. If you come to Argentina and grab a taxi or an Uber, they are going to talk to you in one of these two things: football, soccer, like that, or politics. Everyone talks politics in Argentina. Even if you go to the grocery store, they are going to talk to you about politics, and in the train station, and everyone talks about politics in Argentina. It's we're really politicized people, and but I think that in other countries it's different. Like there are countries where you go and they're not talking about what happened with the Ministry of Social Development. Here, everyone is talking about what happened with the ministry.
So people are quite involved.
Really involved. And it's kind of a passion for people a lot. Like they defend their ideals, not in a logical way, but kind of
Emotional.
then emotional identity plays. It's not like they are like, okay, for me this is the most logical. It's like my father believed this and my grandfather believed this, so I am believing this until I die, even if I'm wrong. So to study politics in Argentina, it was to be more politicized also. Like I studied politics as at school. Then I went home and talked politics with my dad. Then I was, I don't know, in the grocery store and everyone talks politics. And I don't know, I meet someone on the street and they ask me, "Oh, what do you study? Politics. Oh, let me tell you my opinion."
Yeah.
So everyone tells you your opinion. Everyone tells you your opinion about their politics here, and more if you study politics. So that was, I can't run away from politics. I talk about it every day, everywhere. And the thing that I think was hard for me when I was young, when I was like 19, 20 years old and was just starting, everyone explained me things to me. I remember a time that I was in second, third year of political science studies, and they were explaining to me how Congress worked. I was like, you know what I study, right? You met me a long time ago. You know I study political science, and you're explaining me how the Congress works. I know these things, and a lot of people explained things to me, a lot of them, and they knew that I liked politics and everything, but I don't know, I was young and I was a woman, so
Yeah.
people explain a lot of things to me all the time. They believe that they know better than everyone else. That's an Argentinian thing. Everybody thinks that knows something better than the other one. And so for that part, it was kind of tedious because I had to listen to everyone's opinions, and they explained a lot of things to me. But on the other side, it was really, really fun because I could understand all of the things that were happening.
Yeah.
And I got to debate about them in class with 20 people and what those 20 people think, and to see an author that wrote 40 years ago and be able to use that theory in my day-to-day basis was incredible, because you get to know the theory in another way. Like, it's not some always words and these abstract kind of things. There's things happened. So it was really, really interesting and rich to be able to use my country's experience to study.
Very relate to that, what you're saying. And it sounds also like an exciting time to be a young woman and with all these different movements and being influenced by what's happening at the moment, or even standing up and not being influenced for what's happening, right? What would you say was it now? Because you just mentioned a bit, is it an easier thing to understand more what's happening and then you're still in the middle of it all? Or would you say, shit, I know actually so much and then I see what's happening in reality? And that's actually breaking my heart. What would you say about that?
I think it breaks out my heart a little bit. But this is, I believe that in politics and in life, but in this case in politics, you can't be 100% sure that you know what's happening
Mm.
and that what you believe is happening is wrong or it's right. There are 100 points of view about everything, and that's what I learned, that living in these two different worlds, right? I see people that are completely happy about something political that happens, and then I have other friends that are completely wrecked and brokenhearted about what happened, and it's the same thing. So it's not about, okay, this is right and this is wrong, and there's only one way to see things. And I learned that there's a lot of different points of view about everything. It does break my heart when I see people that don't want to understand. For instance, like, I believe this is okay, and I believe this is right, and this is the way things have to go. And they are choosing not to see how a lot of other people suffer for those choices, and how their life are suffering, and how their future is suffering in a way. And if I respect it when you say, I know this is happening and I understand it, but I choose it anyway. Like, you're in your right to choose it and to support things. But it's another thing when they say, I choose not to see everything.
Mm.
If you get your heart broken about everything that happens and you choose it anyway, it's okay. It's your decision. When you say, "La, it's okay," and choose not to see how different decisions affect a lot of people, that breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to don't mind what happened to everyone else's. That breaks my heart a lot. Yes.
How are you dealing with that then?
I choose to understand. I choose to understand. And I believe that there are no bad people or good people in this. For instance, I have friends that tell me that whoever voted for this person, for example, they are bad people. They want bad things for other people. They have no empathy. They are the devil. And I know them, and I know how they were raised, and I know what they taught them, and I know how their teachers and their parents taught them right from wrong. So I know why they think like that. And in the other way, it's the other way too. Oh, when they tell me, for instance, here, it's a really normal thing to say that the people that are more left-sided, they all steal, they or take your money, for instance, and people are being used by bad politicians that steal their money, for instance. And I know that's not true. That these people know a lot about politics, and they're really educated, and they truly believe that this is right. So is I think that I chose to think that I'm in a privileged place and not a bad one. I get to see every point of view, and I get to see why people act like they act, and I get to see why people vote what they vote. And that could be something sad, and sometimes it is, and sometimes I'm heartbroken, or I'm like, I feel I have no power to change what people think, and I'm like kind of in this position that it's hard. But I choose to concentrate in that I'm a privileged position where I can change a lot of minds, and I can give a lot of perspective, and that I can understand a lot of points of view from inside. And I think that's great, because to be short-sighted and to only see one part of the world or one part of the ideas is really bad in politics. It's what gives us polarization and war and conflict. So to be able to see every point of view and to meet people with a lot of different opinions, it's really enriching. I think it's good.
Thank you for your words. That's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing here now. So when I hear you, it doesn't only sound like political skills or knowledge, it also sounds like a lot of communication and maybe even some social skills. Where did you get these from?
My social skills. Well, I don't know. I believe that when I was young, my parents always treated me like an adult. I was young and they told me that my ideas matter. And when I had a disagreement with them, they were like, okay, tell me your point of view. Why do you believe that me taking away the TV is wrong? Come on, make your opinion. And they always thought they spoke to me and treated me like I was an adult, even if I wasn't. And the responsibility that they gave me was like, okay, I do this with you because I trust you and I know that you can do it. And that gave me a lot of confidence, and that gave me a lot of respect for others, and to believe that I have to manage myself like someone respectful and honorable, because they thought that I was. Even when I was 7 or 8 years old, they already thought that I was something that deserved respect in their ideas, in their way of speaking. So I think that changed a lot. When I was a little girl, a lot of grown-ups told me that I was like a mini adult. And I think that's why, because my parents treated me like one. They always treated me like an adult, and I think that gave me a lot of tools, let's say, to be one in such young age. Let's say.
Great.
Yes, I think it's about that.
And then when you went to university, I'm curious, what is it what you learned about yourself during study time?
What I learned about myself.
You know, being confronted by so many different theories and ideals and aspects and perspectives. What is it what you realized about yourself that time?
I think there's different kind of things. First, I used difference as a kind of armor, let's say. Then I had to learn how to not be different, let's say, because being different at first it was scary. And then I believed that, okay, if I'm going to be different, I'm going to be different. And I used this and this kind of armor that gave me strength. And I needed to think that I was better than others. With time I changed that a little bit. I'm trying to change that a lot. But it's like, if I didn't believe that my opinions were better than others, I wouldn't have the strength to have those. So I had to make myself really big to be able to be different. And then I had to learn how to become myself small, just not to think that I'm better than everyone else. So I think that happened a lot during university. First, I made myself really big so that I could carry my opinions that were different from others. And then when I went outside into the world, I had to make myself small, not to step on anyone else, not to think that I'm always right, for example. And so it was a little bit about that, like how to be confident enough to be different, and then how to make yourself humble enough to learn from others. Because if you are too confident, you don't learn from anyone else and you're stuck. So I had to learn a lot about how to be confident and how to be humble at the same time, to be able to think as you think, but to learn about how others think also. I think that was something that I had to learn in studying times.
Very wise words, Victoria. And I also totally understand. I mean, if I hear you correctly, you're coming from this rather right-winged or right-leaning
Yeah.
school. Of course, you want to be different, and of course, then you have to differentiate yourself from these people or these values. I can definitely relate to that. Thanks for sharing. I'm curious, what is your take now with this political science background and everything you've also read and worked on? What is your take now on Argentinian situation at the moment in terms of if you would have now the chance, what would you wish for Argentina to happen?
Oh, I think that's really hard question.
Mm.
Argentina, it's in a different in a weird place right now. I think that what I wished for it would be more empathy, let's
Mm.
say, because I don't stand with the government that it's now. I don't like it. I don't think that their way of looking at the world and looking at the country is the right way.
Mhm.
I think there are better ways to see it.
Mhm.
But you can wish. If you tell me what do I wish, there's always going to be different people in power with different opinions. What I truly wish for my country is that they don't have this hate inside of them. Like I told you before, if you are from one side or another political side, it's kind of part of your identity here. Like my
Mm.
grandfather thought like this, and his grandfather thought like this, so I'm going to think like this, and that identity thing gives a lot of hate to other people. It's us versus them.
Mhm.
It's us or it's them all the time, and that gives a lot of hate about everyone. And I would truly like for my country to understand that we're all in this together. It's not that they are losers and winners in this thing. We're in the same country, and to be better, we have to work together. Like this difference in opinion should be something that challenged us to have new opinions and new ideas. And it's not giving us anything new. Like we're always coming backwards. We're coming back with ideas that we already did and we already had done. We already suffered this. This moment in Argentina looks a lot like the 90s here in Argentina.
Mhm.
A lot, and I believe that we are going backwards in a lot of things, and
Mhm.
also I would like for people to love their country more. I think people in Argentina don't love their country,
Mhm.
like, and that's why they're killing a lot of parts of our country, a lot of beautiful parts of our Argentina now, and people are celebrating it because they don't love their country. There's a lot of things that make Argentina special. We have been really important for human rights in Latin America, really important. Like there's a lot of movements about social movements. There's a social capital that canalizes the problems in society that it's incredible, and I haven't seen in any part of the world. Like the way we get together and social problems and we work together from the ground up, it's something that amazes me all the time. And nowadays this government is against that. It's cutting everything that makes us for me. And I believe that this is very popular nowadays because people don't love their country. Here they always talk about being something else. Oh, we could be Germany, we could be United States, and they're always comparing what we could be instead of seeing what we are and what great things we already have in us and how to use that. So I would love people to love their country more and to see the good things that we have here that they are not usually seen, I believe.
Thank you. Very interesting. What would you say when they say, oh, we want to be Germany or we want to be the US? What do these people see in these countries? I mean, I'm sitting now here in Germany. What do they see in these countries? What is better in comparison to Argentina? What would you say?
That's the thing. I think they don't even know because we, as a South American country, we are taught that the North is always better. We're
Third world country, yeah.
like third world countries. We are less developed and we know less about the world, and our economies are worst and everything is worse. And you learn that a lot. I think that is also a lot about the American Hollywood kind of export of ideas, that tells you that a third world country is always behind in a way, right? Like,
Mm,
so I think it's a global south kind of things that you're
yeah.
always looking up. My friends, they all dream with going to live to Europe because life there is much better. They teach you to believe that the north is the way to go. Like we have to be as similar as we can from them. And that, I think that's a problem. You're always chasing something that you're not. And instead of going back with what makes us a country and the values that we stand for and what makes us different from other countries. It's something that I had to unlearn, actually. I was taught just like them to look north, let's say, and to think that Europe and United States, they were the thing we have to aspire to. And when I started learning the true culture of Latin America and mostly Argentina, I started to realize that we didn't have to change that to become better. We have to use that to become better. And I think that that's really important nowadays. But it's starting to happen a little bit. I believe that people are starting to change the way the world is seen, let's say. But we have a long way to go yet.
Thanks. Very strong words. But would you say, because you mentioned earlier that some other countries are doing a very good job, what would be these examples? What would you say from your perspective? What countries are doing a very good job in terms of politics or in terms of their internal aspects or issues?
I think I don't know if I can answer that. I can speak about the kind of government I think it's good and for myself. But as I'm not part of those countries, I don't know what is best for them. So
Of course.
I can say, for example, I like Brazil's politics, for example, nowadays. I like it a lot. And I think that they have a view about how to create economic worth and political worth that it's really interesting. I like Lula. But for instance, I went to Brazil and there are people that are suffering because of it and are people that are happy because of it. So I don't think that I can say this is okay or this is wrong because I don't live there, because I'm not a part of it. But Brazil will be a country that in the long run, I believe they're doing a great job.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Well, then let's jump into the Brazilian adventure after university.
Yes.
That's where we also met in Brazil. What would you say? I mean, for a lot of people who maybe have no idea about Latin or South America, or maybe haven't been to Argentina or Brazil in particular, what would you say is different between Brazil and Argentina?
Oh, a lot of things. Let's say first, it's the language. In Argentina, we speak Spanish. In Brazil, they speak Portuguese. Everything is different in Brazil. It's all Latin America, but it's different in a way. People have another way of thinking. For example, about work. Argentina, it's kind of like we work, and then we spend like 5 hours working. We put everything into working, and then we go and do something else. Brazilians don't think like that. They are always doing something else. They're always having fun, even when they are working. So maybe it takes 10 hours for them to do what we do in 5, but they are having fun in the meantime. They don't separate things so much, like work, family, friends, life. They don't segment things. It's all part of the same thing: friends, family, work, life. There's all part of my day, so they leave it all together, I believe. Also, I think that I never met friendlier people in my life. Like, they're almost too friendly. Like, you can't be alone in a bar or in a cafe that they're going to speak to you. I remember I was talking to a Brazilian old man in Paraty, where I met you actually, and someone asked for a light. He went there and they started talking, and they talked like for half an hour, and they were hugging each other. And when he came back, he was like, "Oh, nice guy, I didn't know him." And they were hugging each other in the middle of the street, and they never knew each other. So I believe they have this thing about everyone is your friend until proven contrary. They start being friends, and then they see if they like each other. I think that's really nice. I also like their connection to music. And also I believe when you go further into the Brazilian culture and you understand their food, their religion, their music, their social problems are also different from us. And I think it has to do about heritage. It's okay. You can see a mixture of cultures that here in Argentina is much more different, because you have the Portuguese European culture there, and you have the African culture that it's so strong and it's so present in their day-to-day lives. that here in Argentina we don't have that. And I think that's incredible. In their religions, in their music, in everything, it's there. And you can see it so much. And I think it's beautiful to see something so different, so close to home. And I think that the heritage is really different there.
You stayed at the beach and you worked there quite a while.
Yes.
What did you learn about work at that moment? You said now,
Oh,
oh yeah,
so
they take
much.
a lot of time to do things and they need the whole day, but then at least they have a lot more fun while doing it. What else did you experience or maybe even learn about yourself during that time?
I learned everything about myself. I think it was one of the most life changing things
Oh,
in my
really?
life. I went there and I was so naive. I was this blonde, young little girl there that didn't understand anything. And I worked with people that had a really hard life. And of course, at first it was like, oh, this little girl, we're going to pass right through her. She's going to go away in a week or so. But I didn't, and I stayed there. And in terms of literal work, they taught me how to use a broom. I had never used a broom in my life. How to clean a toilet, how to take out the trash, how to clean a table, how to do those things that I thought I knew how to do. I don't know why. But then when I was there, they all looked at me like, you don't know how to do a thing. And that was true. So I learned a lot about hard work. And also I had to sell things. In the work that I was doing in Brazil, it's like a tourist comes and you have to sell your table. They have to choose you
You worked in a
to eat there.
restaurant, right?
Yes, there are a lot of restaurants on the beach. So you have to convince that person to sit in your restaurant, in your table. And then you have a percentage of what they spent. That is the money you have. If you have zero tables, you have zero money. So we all kind of fought each other in the beach for those people that came to the beach, for those clients. And that taught me a lot. Of course, they all tricked me at first and they were like, oh, the next one is yours, the next one is yours. And it passed hours and I couldn't get anyone. So I had to fight a little bit. I actually had to fight a lot. So to be able to make myself stand strong and you're not going to walk all through me. Like I know I look like you can, but I won't let it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also for me to be able to have an experience where what the money I had that day, they paid me that day. And that's the thing that I ate. And then that's how I bought dinner, for example. So to have that experience that it's okay, if you make 50, you can spend 50. If you make 100, you can spend 100. If you don't make a lot of money, you're not going to eat a lot. If you make a lot of money, you can go out with your friends, for example. And that's an experience that I never had before. And I think it was really important for me. And for my life to understand what is to work for a living, like really work for a living. It really changed me a lot, a lot. When you are in your bubble, let's say, what everything that you see is inside that bubble. You don't get to see things that are outside, and even if that bubble is translucent, let's say, or transparent, you're always seeing through a glass. So you're not getting anything from it. So when I burst that bubble, let's say, when I went to Brazil, I didn't only understand hard work and understand how to work for a living and all of that. I also had a lot of perspective about my life. I became so grateful, so grateful to say the opportunities I have in my life, they're not there for everyone. I'm starting this race so much ahead that a lot of many people, and I couldn't see it before that. How can I be speaking English with you now? How can I understand the way the world works? How I can be able, for example, I could go to Brazil and if everything went wrong and I couldn't have a job or anything, I just call my parents and they could book me a ticket and I come back home. And it's not that much of a risk. I had friends that they use all of the money they had to book a bus ticket and they went there without a place to live and without a work and they worked their way through it and they're having a beautiful life. And to see how things could be so much easier for me and I couldn't saw it before. It changed my life in a whole new way. I saw my life with so much abundance and so grateful about what I had. I was like this kind of different, pissed off, kind of teenager that thought I've been in a world that is not for me. And then I got there and I was like, you see all of the great things that are around you, like how much tools you have, how much people supporting you have, how much knowledge. I have read 1,000 books about everything because my parents gave it to me and I can speak different languages and I can work with what I like. I realized, for example, I worked doing activism and voluntary work where nobody paid me. And I was like, I am able to do that because my parents can pay for my food and for my house. So it really gave me a lot of perspective about how much luck I had, and how different life can be for others. I think that taught me a lot.
Very true. Thanks for your words, Victoria. I also have to say, all these travels I've done around the world always also taught me a lot about privilege and how thankful we can be, especially me here, or we Europeans, as we were also the ones who went everywhere and colonized all these areas, right? So that's a different story. But so Brazil was a very beautiful chapter, I understood. Why did you go back?
I've always had this thing with Brazil, my whole family actually. I went to Bucios, that is the town that I worked in, that is next to Rio, since I was 3 months old. So I went every year, and I felt of it a little bit like home. And all of my friends, they were actually going to Miami to like super different kind of trip. And I was like, that's not me. I don't see myself there at all. And I'd say, well, I'm going to Brazil and let's see what happens. And I never think that I never knew what was going to happen, but I was so incredible that it just happened that way. And for example, my mother loves Brazil so much. My aunt lived in Brazil. And so I had this family thing that we all really love Brazil and their culture and their ways. So I think that's why it called me. And also that I wanted to have a different experience from what I saw other people doing. That they were always going north, let's say. Some of them were going to Madrid and some of them were going to United States and everything. And I wanted to do something different. But I believe it's that. Although my life being a tourist in Bucios was really different from my life working there. And I never saw that coming, but I'm happy that it was.
And why didn't you stay longer in Brazil? Why did you return to Argentina?
So
If you love it so much, why didn't you stay?
I had this moment. I went to Brazil when I finished university, so I was like in a kind of in between moment in my life, between like the old part and the I thought that the world was there for me, more like a grown up. And with all of this perspective about, okay, I have all of these things for me in the world. And that gave me a lot of gratitude about, okay, I can do whatever I'd like. And also, I was a kind of scared also because it was, okay, I can do whatever I like. I have all of these opportunities in life. I can truly do what I love and what I want. I only have to choose what I like, what I want to do in this world. And all of those opportunities not be like, I don't have to work to make this kind of money, or I don't have to work to sustain a family. I can do whatever I like. And that was nice and scary at the same time, because if you don't depend of things that are outside of you, you only depend on things that are inside of you. So it's okay, if I don't do what I love, I'm the only one that I can blame for it, because I have everything to do an impact. I have everything to be happy. I have everything in life. So if I don't get there, it's because of me and nobody else. And that is also kind of scary.
Yeah.
So it was a
self-responsibility.
tough score. Yes, it's some responsibility to say, okay, I have a beautiful family. I have beautiful friends. My life is beautiful. I have economic power. I have knowledge. I have everything I want. Everything. The world gave me everything. So it only depends on me. And that is a lot of responsibility. And I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to grow in these social matters. I wanted to know about myself and the impact I wanted to do in the world. And I thought that coming here and giving it everything that I had to that was really important. I thought that yes. And also Argentina, I love learning. I'm addicted to learning things all the time. And here in Argentina, the social movements and the things that I want to learn, they're really there all the time, and we are really rich and really have this social capital that makes everything a social movement, a collective movement. And I think that is a really good place to learn about that here in Argentina. And Brazil is always there. I'm actually going there next week, so I go there as much as I can.
Well, that's the privilege of living so close to such beautiful areas in the world. I can understand. Well, thanks. So that sounded like, okay, you wanted to make an impact. You got back. You got involved with this NGO in Argentina, one of the very important, popular ones. What is it what you have learned about the world about our systems, about the structures we are in, and the whole system about human rights since you've been working there?
I learned everything. It was so insightful to be inside of how these things happen, you know? For me, it's really interesting because when I was younger, I went to a manifestation, for example, a feminist manifestation, a protest, or something like that, and I had this feeling that I was jumping on a train that was already in movement. How all of these people here, how they all got together to believe the same thing, and we're all fighting for this answer, and how did it all got there? Like this was a question that really was there in my mind all the time. I couldn't understand how it got there. And it was so interesting for me to see how political ideas are born. How do you get to this is happening to me? Oh, this is happening to me also, and this is happening to her also, for example. To having something to fight for, there's a collective path that the ideas have where where they are understand as a problem, and then they are understand as a problem that needs a solution, and then we all get together to think, well, which is the best solution for that? And we get people, and we get money, and we get ideas, and a narrative, and a speech, and it all goes like in this way. They all put their things a little bit in the mixture, and we get these political ideas, and they become a reality. So I think that the human rights movement helped me a lot to put together the different parts of that path. Like, how do we get to this is happening to me, to this is happening to all of us, and how do we change that? So it gave me a lot of insight about how the a problem becomes a problem and a solution becomes a solution. I think that's really important. For example, of that way that the political ideas have to be constructed.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it taught me about someone is that like someone has to defend some people. For instance, like how to see the people that are not being defended in this society, how to spot them, and the best way to defend them without stepping over them, without choosing what is best for them, but the other way around, listening to them, and giving them a voice and giving them their space. So to fight for them to have a place in society, and not telling them what that place is, but let them make that place for themselves. I think that is really important, and it's really difficult to really get inside your head to not step on the people that are being alienated from society, but rather step on everyone else so that they can have a place. I think that it's really important. And also, I learned a lot about myself. I was kind of embarrassed at the beginning about where I came from, about, I don't know, coming from a conservative neighborhood and going to a private school, a private university. Yes, I was kind of embarrassed from where I came from. And it took me a while to see that I am who I am, and that it makes me be, and that I have to use the tools that I have, and the perspectives I have in my life as something positive, and not try to bury it, because I would never, that doesn't help anyone. So to be able to say, okay, yes, I believe this, I work for this, although I'm not representative of this in society. Like, someone looks at me in the street and they wouldn't think that I believe what I believe. And to own that, it helped me own that also.
Are there, I believe now you're of course focusing probably on the Argentinian human rights sector, but I can imagine
Yes.
you're also a bit involved, at least what's happening on a global level. Are there any governments or communities or countries that are doing a very good job in terms of human rights?
Okay, it depends on what it's a good job or a bad job. I think that it's different from every country. Like in South America, we have a kind of human rights movement that I think is really different from Europe's. Well, not all of Europe, not all together, let's say, but from the different countries there. And I think that as a world, we're in a kind of difficult spot. For example, in international cooperation, in philanthropy, international philanthropy, there is something really hard happening. The United States got all of the funding to the international organisms like the International Court of Human Rights, Inter-American Court of Human Rights, organizations that give money for human rights all over the world. Germany is doing also a lot of the funds that we got from Germany are cut out. So all of that money that the countries were giving to exporting values and ideas, and that money that was maintaining the human rights organization in the whole world has been stopped a lot. It's really in a difficult time. And all of that money that it was going to international cooperation is going now to armament and military power. So I think that tells us a lot about the world we are living now. Like not so long ago, we believed that we were in a world that was going toward progressism and idealism and institutions that would make peace, and that we wouldn't have wars anymore, like that's thing of the old century. And we truly believe that. I truly believe that. And seeing the development nowadays, how the state governments are changing and how their politics about where to put their money is changing tells us a lot about where we're going, and I don't like where it's going. So I think that even though there are countries that are still doing things that are all right for or good for human rights, it's going to be harder for them to do it, because the countries with the money sustaining all of this are choosing something else, and that's, I don't know how we are going to surpass that. It's hard. I believe that maybe we are going to have to rely more on the money that people give, like small donors that donor their money every month or something like that, is going to become much more important for us, because the countries and the big organizations, they're not giving money to human rights. So it's really hard to see a country that it's really in a moment where they're expanding their human rights policy, because there's no money to expand our human rights policy nowadays. So there's not many countries that do that.
So at the moment, they're all cutting these funds, so that's a very popular thing at the moment. So if I hear you correctly, your NGO probably is also depending on these funds. So how are your salaries going to be solved the next months? Do you already have strategies about that?
So I'm privileged in the organization I work, because it's one of the biggest human rights organizations in the country. For instance, they have a policy in which they don't accept any funds that comes from the government of the United States, even if it's indirect. In their, I think there are 30 years of this NGO is working, and then in all of their years, they didn't accept any of that financial help. So that it's when United States cut all of their funds, it didn't impact on us that much. But it's still hard, because we do rely on other embassies, and the organizations that give money to us receive money from other countries also. There's a lot of them in Germany, actually, and that impacts on us. But as the organization is big and it has all of this time, they already had a way to have an economic sustainability that doesn't depend only on the context. So it's not going to be a moment of wow, we have a lot of money, we can do everything, but we can survive, and we know that we can survive. And that's really hard to say about social organizations in Argentina, because although we are one of the countries with the most NGOs, and the third sector here in Argentina, like foundations, NGOs, and all of that, is really big, but we don't have any money on it. So there's a lot of organizations that are suffering, and they're suffering a lot. They're closing, they're not being able to finish their programs, their projects. A lot of people is out of work. It's really, really hard. So I'm privileged that although it's hard, there is a sustainability in economic ways in my organization. But it's really, really hard for other organizations that are smaller or that have less years, let's say. Yes, it's a hard time. And also it's because economy here in Argentina nowadays is really hard. There's this economic policy that is trying to make the peso have more strength. So it's really expensive, everything here. My brother lives in Spain, for example, in Barcelona, and if you go to the supermarket in Barcelona and you go to the supermarket here is going to be much more expensive, but much more expensive in let's say comparing in euros or in dollars. And if you and that is difficult, because if you receive funding from the outside, you're going to receive it in dollars or in euros. Before 2 years ago, you can make so many things with dollars here in Argentina. $1 was a lot of pesos, and you can do whatever you like with that money. And nowadays it's really hard, because with the same money you can do much less. So there's a lot of programs and a lot of projects that we're implementing, for example, in the north of Argentina, that now have the money, let's say, have the income, because the same money became so you can do so much less with that same money. And a lot of organizations have that because they plan, like, I don't know, 3 years in ahead. And to plan 3 years in ahead is really difficult in a country like Argentina.
I
So
understand.
it's hard for organizations here nowadays. And also it's not only the economic thing. Human rights are being there's a narrative going on that this government has, that they believe that social organizations are evil. There's a phrase that they use nowadays, like como el curro de los derechos humanos, would say in Spanish, that it's like human rights organization and NGOs, they are stealing from you. They are keeping their money for themselves and they don't make any impact. They all want money and power. And that narrative is really catching on and really expanding. And it's hard. It's hard to use that to change the narrative in the society and to make people trust organizations again. It's really hard for social organizations nowadays in Argentina in a lot of ways.
I just wanted to ask, what is one of the biggest misconceptions about social work or human rights? But it sounds that's more a misconception from political side, but what in general are kind of misconceptions around society? What do people think about your work or in general about social work and human rights?
It depends who you ask, obviously. There are people that social work changed their life with the movement, the political movements in Argentina. All of for example, the labor rights are really important. The unions, the co-ops, they're really important ways of organization here in Argentina. And now they are getting stripped of their power, but they had a lot of power through a lot of years here, and that represented protection for the workers here. And those have a really bad reputation nowadays. There were people that took advantage of that power, but instead of taking away those people from those kind of organization, they're taking away the power of the organization and getting the workers really in a dangerous and vulnerable place. And so those labor organizations, they have a bad reputation in a lot of places, but in other places they saved someone's life, they saved a family's life, they secured an income, so they really believed in them. So you have contrast in there. Then human rights, as I told you, so this new government is pushing really ugly this idea that the human rights are stealing from you and they are lying to you and they are bad people, really. And it is all a steering wheel for them to get money all the time. And it's hard. It's really hard. But when I say that I work in human rights, most people find it interesting, different. Like, oh, let's see, what do you do? How different? Let's say. But for instance, I'm going to tell you something that happened, I think, a week ago. The 24th of March in Argentina is a really special date because it's Memoria, Verdad y Justicia, memory, truth, and justice. That it's where we remember the ones that were disappeared in the Argentinian dictatorship. And here in Argentina, we judged that people and they are on jail now. So that's really important for Argentinian history and human rights history in the world. So we commemorate that on the 24th of March. And as my organization works a lot with that topic, about memory, truth, and justice, Memoria, Verdad y Justicia. Obviously, I went to the manifestation that happens every year. And after that, after the manifestation and the protest, everything, I had a family dinner with a lot of aunts and cousins and everything. And I went straight to the family, to the dinner, and I had an aunt that asked, like, what? And you went to the protest? Yes. They pay you to do it, right? They asked you. You were obliged to go because they needed the numbers. So it was fun not fun, it was sad. I tried it to be fun so that I don't cry, let's say. But it had an impact on me to see how they see organizations. They believe they pay me to go to a manifestation so they can have a political power and show numbers. And it was not about that. It was about a moment in our history that it's so important to honor that and to be there to say we are this is a part of our history and I'm not going to let anyone erase it. It's so important to me. And to see someone believe that I'm doing this because they pay me money to go to this, there's like, they don't get it sometimes. They believe it's all about power, political power and money, and that ideas don't have to do with it. And most of the time it's all about ideas, and the money and the power, there are ways to get those ideas out, but the core of the things is not that, it's the values that you want. The rest are only tools to get it out there. So I think that people sometimes forget uh, what are the core of things, and believe that power and money are the core about these social organizations, because so many times is the main thing of so many things, like in companies or in a lot of ways. Money and power is the most important, so they don't believe that money and power is not the most important thing for us. They don't get it sometimes.
Yeah, sounds like there's a lot of doubt and or criticism happening about these
Yes.
organizations. And of course, also organizations have to work on a political level. So I understand that there might be some similarities. But maybe a good bridge to the topic I would like to ask. So coming from political science, I can understand you're kind of prepared to work in areas where you still have to sit in front of the computer and work on papers or do statistics or programs or design something. And now you're in the human rights activism field, but you also study design and management for social programs. So what is your actual work on a daily basis looking like? What are you actually doing?
Okay, so I have different parts of my work, let's say. I have my main work that it's in this NGO of human rights. There, I work in a transversal team. We have all these teams about gender, political violence, mental health, like these thematic different teams. And my team is transversal for all of them. First, I work with voluntary people and fellowships and internships and all of that. I run that program, but I think it's great because I get to meet young students from all around the world that want to make an impact here in Argentina. And on the other side, I work in international cooperation. I contribute to the process that it's like, okay, for example, the gender team wants to make something, to do something. And we say, okay, what are going to be your objectives? Let's write them down. What are going to be the activities that lead you to that objectives? What indicators are we going to use to measure our impact in this field? So we planned all of those, the most strategical planning. We get the money, that it's an important thing for it happening, and then we monitor and evaluate how much impact are we having in this project. So we get the idea into the ground. We plan strategically how we're going to do this, obviously with the help of for example, if it would be a project about gender, the gender team, and we together would plan how this project is going to go through, where we're going to get the money, and how we're going to measure how much impact we have. So that's what I want to know more about. That's why I'm making the design of management of social programs masters, to understand how to make things happen, to not only understand the problems, but to create a program that impacts, and how to see how much impact we have. That it would be my main work. And then I have like, I try to do that in small projects, because I work in a big organization. It's not that I'm not in the whole process of what I'm talking. I do different parts and other people do different parts. It would be in a big company. You don't do all the marketing strategy. You do a part of that strategy. And to be able to learn more about this work, I have small projects where I can do all of the process, let's say, so that I can learn the whole process. And there, for example, now I'm working in a documentary about a recycling center. So I have a friend that he makes documentaries, and he studied anthropology, and he told me like, there's something here, there's something social, there's something about the climate change that I want to tell this story. And so we partnered up together, and I was like, okay, let's see, what are we going to be our objectives, how we're going to show it, what's the impact that we want to have with this story. So I try to grab those projects and those ideas and see what do they need for them to come to life. That's what I like to do in my work.
I'm wondering, do the people, like the old people from the school background, university background, or the neighborhood, do they have any opinion on what you're doing?
I think that they respect me a lot. That's important. They like, I was good at telling my different opinion, let's say. I was not about fighting like, oh, you're so wrong, I'm so right. It was more that I had a discussion that I was really interesting with people. I think that one of the things good that I have is that I can make that discussion about different points of view interesting, and that earned me a lot of respect. So people don't think that I'm just a the stupid person that doesn't understand what she's saying. They think that I understand really much what I'm saying and what I believe. It's more like they don't believe what I believe, but that's how Victoria is. She's always been like that. It's something kind of like that. Like they aren't surprised of how my life turned out to be because I was always this person. I was always looking for what they weren't teaching me, looking why they're all thinking the same, even when I was a little girl. So I think that they are not surprised of what I do. They're like, okay, this makes sense. And they respect me for what I do, even though they don't think like me and they don't want to change how they think. They're like, okay, you have your things, I have my things, and that's okay. For instance, they don't want to change the way they think, but they respect mine because there's so much time that they have seen my whole process. It's not that one day I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm going to think different from everybody else. They saw a process in which I started understanding some other things. And even though they couldn't accompany me in that process, like walk beside me in that process, they saw me walk alone, let's say, to one place to another, so it makes sense for them that I'm like how I am. And I think they respect it a lot. Like they respect that I had I was brave enough to be different. I think that earned me a lot of respect.
Victoria, you said something very beautiful. What would you say in terms of the global happenings now, in terms of human rights? You know, I'm in Europe. I also have been to the Middle East. I have been to Africa. I've been to different areas. And also maybe in Europe, just in general, closer to some stuff that's happening now in Gaza, Palestine, Israel, Ukraine, Sudan. You know, it's maybe all a bit closer than Latin America. What is your perception? How are the people in Latin America perceiving these human rights crises, let's say? Is there any connection to it? Because you are quite on a different continent, you're quite far away. Some people say, yeah, you know, it's not really touching us because we're not so connected to it. But of course, maybe in your bubble with your work situation and context, it's a different thing. What would you say about that?
I would say on the one side, it's pretty far away. This geography distance creates a political distance and an emotional distance also with what's happening. That's true. It's not that it's that important in the day-to-day things, but obviously it gets here. There's so little information here of what is really happening. If you don't see all of the news, if you don't really read about it, and if you don't have a special interest about it, there's not much information going around. So, as I told you before, in Argentina, we are really polarized and we are really political. And so everyone has an opinion, obviously, but it's really hard to find an informed opinion because information is not getting here so much. And as I told you before, it's a lot about identity. The right-wing people, they all believe, for example, Israel is right, and the more progressive left side people believe that Gaza is right. And it's also simplistic, like the combination between little information, no information, divided political society, and an idea that political views have to do with your identity and not your logic brings us in a scenery where this is the bad guy, this is the good guy, and that's it. And it's really simplistic. You don't understand the deepness of the conflicts, and they don't know the story of the conflicts because these things come from so much history. So I guess that here they are seeing like some people think this is good, this is bad, and other people think this is good, this is bad, and that's it. So we don't have a deeper and most powerful and truthful understanding of those problems. So it's just something more that gets in your political identity or your political point of view that makes you who you are, but you don't understand truly what you are saying or what you are defending. I believe that it's really shallow, let's say, the opinions on the conflict, really shallow. It's hard to find a truly informative, deep opinion here about that. Of course, there are people that work analyzing the international relationships in that places and everything, and they know a lot, but it's a small amount of people.
I understand what you're saying. There are also so many different opinions and people with different takes on this here in my bubble, even though, of course, at one point it's quite clear that people saying, "Oh, it's a complex situation." It doesn't look so complex anymore when it's just about saving people and not
Yes.
killing people and committing genocide, right? So I think that's a very simple thing to stop doing. What would you say in terms of human rights on a global level? What are the steps needed in this situation we're facing at the moment on this global stage?
I would love to have that answer.
Mm.
It's really hard. I'm wondering the same thing all the time. And I think that the thing about human rights and a peaceful way of treating these situations is that it has never been done before. It's really hard to find moments in history where human rights got to really change a situation like this. So I think that's a question that has been being asked for so many generations before me, and I think that it's going to be asked for so many generations after me. And we're still always looking for a more peaceful way to make this happen, to resolve these conflicts. But it's hard because there's a part of society that asks itself this question: how there's a more peaceful way to solve conflict, and there's another part of the world that doesn't want that peace to happen. If we don't get together with the idea that we want peaceful things to be done, it's really hard that we get to that answer. So I wish I had it, but I don't.
When I traveled, I realized that a lot of areas, especially in Africa, in Southeast Asia, or now in South America, communities that are really based on, indigenous traditions and values, have a different take on what's happening on the global level. What would you say about that?
Yes, there's a lot about the indigenous culture in Argentina that I don't think that I'm so authorized to talk about that because I don't know so much about it. But I believe there's something about the indigenous people history here, for example, that is, oh, now people are surprised that they're killing everyone and they're making those atrocious, really hard things in the world. And they're like, for us, it's not a surprise. They did this to all of us. We grow up knowing that people do this, that people kill and that people take and then people do violent, horrible things. And we know that, and we've been knowing that for hundreds and hundreds of years. So when someone that it's not a part of that culture and doesn't know that history tells like, oh my God, why are people doing this nowadays? They're not doing this nowadays. They've always done it. So it's something about their history that they know that the humans are able to do really hard and violent things. And I think that's something that they know that we are always rediscovering all the time, but they are really engraved in their culture that they had almost all had genocides in the indigenous cultures here, and it's really important for them in the way they see life that happened here. People that are not from indigenous background, they don't know that genocide happened, but it's not engraved in their culture as other cultures have. They have a different view about nature and the world and what progress means that I think is really really important, a different side of what's good and what's going to make us better. I worked in an organization that worked a lot with indigenous people because they made fabric from wool in a natural way, and the whole idea of this organization was that progress was to come back to the roots, like to understand the natural ways of living and our connection to nature, and that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves is something that is really important for the indigenous communities here in Argentina. And to go back to that is what's going to make us grow and go further, let's say. And I think it's really beautiful and really true.
History is always repeating itself.
Always. We can't escape it.
Besides your work at the NGO, you also said you're writing articles on social justice. Are you starting? Okay.
I'm starting to write articles.
How do you create impact with these articles? What is your vision for that?
I don't know if I'm trying to. It's not the only thing to make an impact. It's like to put there a point of view. It got me a long time to started writing articles because I have this thing that is, if you're writing something, you have to have something to say, something to add to the discussion. So I think that the impact in journalism is that you add a point of view and you are a part of a discussion that is happening. So if you want to participate in this discussion, you have to have a point of view of yourself to add. not to just repeat what other tells you or to write what you think people want to read about. You have to be clear about your point of view about the things you're writing to be able to write them. Because if you want the point of view of someone else's, there's already that in the world going around. You need to have your own point of view to be able to write about these social political things. So I've been wanting to write for a long time, but I never did it before because I wanted to be sure of what my point of view is and what I'm adding to the conversation.
That's a very important point. How do you get this clarity and this feeling of being free, also emotionally ready to get into the creative mode? Because sometimes I feel when we're writing, some people also complaining that they don't feel in the flow, they feel blocked, and they don't know how to access this creative energy. How are you doing that?
So some time ago, I have a friend that I did a literary workshop with, and she has a digital magazine. And she talked to me. I'm thinking about this idea. I want you to write a column for my magazine. Start with an article and let's see how it goes. And I want it to be about your work and your ideas about social justice and your political ideas and your analysis of societies nowadays. And when she told me that, I realized that I have been collecting so many ideas in my head from the last 10 years. Oh, I could write about this and this and this. And I had all of these ideas that have been storing up for when the opportunity comes. So when I hung up the call with her, I was like, okay, I have to do it because the world is telling me that I have to. The opportunity is coming to the surface. And clearly I have so much to say because I gave her a summary with, I don't know, I cut it up to 6 ideas because I have 10 of them. And I was like, okay, I will get with 6 of them that I think that they're the best one. And they were all ideas that I've been thinking for years, like concepts and views about political ideas, feminism, Argentinian society, cooperation in the world. They were ideas that had been in my head for years and had been fed by everything I read and everything I listened. And I think that when those ideas came up to my head, it was like, okay, I have something to say. Like I have to take this opportunity because clearly I want to add to the conversation, let's say. And also to answer the other part of your question is, I think that the best way to get that creative flow or that creative feeling to know what to write is by paying attention. I believe that there's always people doing things that could inspire us and telling things that could inspire us. So I think the best way to really write about the world, for example, that is what I like to do, is to pay attention to it, to see what your friends are talking about, to see what the news are talking about, to see what the newspaper is talking about, and to try to understand your opinion about it and how do you see it. Maybe it's not an answer, maybe it's a question the other way around. For example, like you see that something's happening and you don't have an opinion about it, but you have a question about it, like why is this happening, or is this happening only to me? I think that paying attention about your surroundings is the most important thing, like to see, okay, what happens to other people in difference to me.
Beautiful. And Victoria, is there anything you would like to publish or you would like to talk about or share your opinion on, but you're actually afraid to publish it or afraid to share it?
Of course, of course, of course. I'm afraid of everything I'm saying nowadays. You asked me a lot of questions I was afraid of answering.
Oh.
Yes, yes. When you work in a political human rights kind of thing, it's like there's the answer people want you to say. There's the people, and there's the answer you want to say. Sometimes it's the same, but for me, there are little moments in which the thing that I think that the world wants me to say and the thing that I want to say are the same. There are not many times that happen. So I think that to say that, to be able to say what I believe, that's why I've been talking about being sure of your point of view, because it's like you have to be sure of what you want to say to be able to say it. If not, you're going to say what other people think and what other people want you to write about or answer. And to connect with what you truly believe, I think it's the most difficult part. And I hope that I'm brave enough to do it, but it's hard. It's hard because you feel judged all the time. You ask me about political ideas from Argentina, from the world, and I know what my work would answer, I know what my parents would answer, I know what my old me would answer. But to answer what you truly believe requires confidence and to be at peace of what you believe. To be okay if someone judges me, they judge me for my true self and not because I'm saying what other people want me to say. And they're going to hate you anyways, probably. One opinion is going to have hate from the other ones. Like, someone is going to have something to say, so you better be judged for what's true to you. But it's really hard. And I'm really scared all the time, actually. Yes, I am scared. I do it anyway, but I am scared.
Thanks for your openness. I understand that. In the end, I mean, it's also human, you know, we're just human beings and trying our best. So, of course, fear or being scared is a part of the journey, I would say. And it's not about dismissing that, but definitely still doing it, even though you are afraid sometimes. How do you manage this maybe office structured NGO work with your artistic, spiritual, dancing, creative kind of aspects you like?
I'm more structured than I think what you believe. I'm not an organized person, so I like that the things around me are organized because if not, I will go crazy, let's say. So I like this structure, but I like this structure to be able to do things around it, let's say, or outside of it also. What happens with big NGOs is that sometimes you can't see your impact. I'm writing this paper or completing this information and someone in 1,000 kilometers from here is going to have sexual and reproductive rights. It's really far away when you have a lot of people between what you do and the impact you have. You lose the horizon line. You lose what you are doing this for because there are so many people between what you do and the impact you're having that sometimes you forget about the impact you're having. It's important for me to, from time to time, go and see the impact, to meet with the people you are fighting for, or to go to a conference with a lot of smaller organizations that they thank you for the work you do and the information you create that makes them be able to do another work, and that works makes another work. And I had to be in contact with the impact because it's the same if I'm completing a Word or an Excel for a company or from an NGO or for everyone. So be in contact with the impact is really important for me. So to be able to continue.
What would you say that was, I'm very curious about that. What would you say to people who are maybe listening now and they're kind of feeling that they're stuck in the wrong situation, maybe in the wrong conditions, but they do have maybe an idea what they're actually interested about? How would you guide these people to follow their hearts?
I believe that the only way is follow. Of course, it depends of what your opportunities in life. There's people that can choose to do whatever they like because they need to feed their children, for example. So I know that a lot of people are limited by life. But if you have the opportunity to do what you like and to follow your instinct and your heart, I think that's the only way. I've seen people like do what they think they have to do, and life's always more difficult for them. It's more difficult to get opportunities or to do things. And I think that knowing what you want from life and what you love, it's such an opportunity. People usually don't know what they love, what they like, and that makes them lost. And that's more difficult to go through life lost. So if you have the opportunity to know where you want to go and you actually love it and you're sure that you love it, that's such a privilege because you have somewhere to go. And life's much more easier that way, I believe. So if you have somewhere to go, something that you're chasing. And I truly believe that the word is going to give you more opportunities and it's going to be easier for you to follow a path that you believe in, that you follow one that you don't. It's going to be much more easier to do something that is true to yourself, I believe.
Very beautiful. What is giving you the hope in this heavy world at the moment?
What is giving me hope? It gives me hope that it doesn't matter the ideas that you have, the opinions that you have. People want to be good. People I know, they always think their opinions are right because they think they want the world to become a better place. Nobody wants the world to become a worse place. Nobody wants other people suffering. They all believe their ideas and their opinions are going to make the world better. So even though our ideas and our opinions are different, there's the same goal here, that it's to make a better place. That gives me hope. I believe that that's true. There must be in this world people that don't want it to make better, but that's not the people I have around me.
Mm.
So the people I know, they all think that they want the world to be a better place.
Mm.
So even if we are not agreeing in the way to do it, we all are agreeing in the end. So I think that's positive.
What would be your steps in making the world a better place?
I believe that that's the step I'm thinking of taking, like to be trying to make an impact regarding if it's from writing or my more formal work, or even with my friends, even with my family, to have these conversations where tell people your opinions is valid and I want to listen to it and I want you to think about it. That's impact. To make every little thing or every big thing, thinking about the impact is going to have, I think that changed the world already every day.
Beautiful, beautiful, and empowering. What is coming up for you? I mean, you're just 25 or not even. So, what is the next steps that are coming up for you, or maybe the next chapters, or any big vision you're working on?
I don't know yet. I like a lot this new journalistic thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to continue writing. I would like to finish my master's. I would like to have a podcast someday also. Yes, a lot. I don't know. I don't have those much planned things. I think I'm at the beginning of some steps. I just started my master's. I just started with my journalistic work. So I want to develop that. I would love to.
And do you see yourself staying in Argentina, or is there another curiosity to see more areas, especially maybe with a focus on human rights?
I would like to travel,
Mm-hmm.
but I would like to live in Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about moving this year. I still live like in the north part of Buenos Aires, and I'm thinking of moving to the city. But I would like to stay in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. Yes, I think it's a really great city. I love it a lot.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Victoria. We touched so many different aspects and stories. I'm very
Yes.
thankful for your insights. What I always ask, because I'm curious in the end, I mean, you are still very young. So normally I like to ask, what kind of advice would you give your 20 years old self? But let's say that's not so far away. What kind of advice would you give to the Victoria that was suffering at school and realizing maybe these are not my people? With everything that you've been through already and everything you've learned already, what kind of advice would you give that to maybe teenage Victoria in school?
I would say trust yourself. Go with your instinct. If it feels right, it may be right. It's all going to come up together later. Trust yourself, trust your instinct. That would be my thing that I would say to myself. Because I had this fear every time I did something. I had this idea that it felt right, but I didn't understand like the whole picture of what was happening. So I would say that trust yourself.
Maybe a question now connected to that. How do you navigate your values in these messy situations, especially in terms of trust? How do you sometimes know, is this me or is it not me? How do you do that with yourself?
That is a really good question. It's hard for me because I internalize some speeches and some values that are not myself. So they ask me about a topic, for example, and I see myself and I'm repeating someone else's speech. So, and without even realizing, maybe something I heard at work and that my boss told me about this thing, or maybe the news, or maybe a book. So I found myself a lot of times repeating a speech that is not my own. And I usually see it because I'm left with this bad taste in my mouth. Oh, I said this and I don't know if I believe it. So the next time that I'm asked about it, I try to say my opinion, or I just say I don't know. For example, I prefer to say I don't know my opinion. I don't know what I think than to repeat someone else's opinion. So I try not to do it, but sometimes it's like I find myself doing it. I'm already there.
Great. And so humble already. Very wise words. Thank you. Okay, now imagine this is the stage for you to maybe even write big articles and everyone reads them, or have a big speech on something. And now, regarding everything that's happening in the world at the moment, especially in terms of human rights, if you could send out a message to the people, what would you say?
I would people to see that the difference between each other is what makes us grow. If we all thought the same things were bad or the same things were wrong, we'd never grow. We'll never see anything different. We would stay the same. And the fact that we are different, making different questions and having different opinions, it is what gets us in movement and gets us expanding and gets us with different ideas and different ways of solving problems and different problems also. So I'd like people to see that the importance of difference and the importance of exchange, because a lot of people are wanting for everyone to think in a certain way. And I think that would step us back a lot. It would froze us in time. So difference is what makes us keep going and keep growing, because questioning things is the only way to have better things. So I like people to see the beauty in difference.
Very beautiful words. Thank you. I agree with these words. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Victoria. That was a great, very inspiring conversation.